I wanted to share something that I shared with my class last semester. So, for a little bit of context, I taught a class last semester on Generation Z culture, and it just so happened to coincide with the last presidential election where Trump was elected. And many of my students who are Generation Z age were pretty crestfallen. I think that this was the first major presidential campaign for sure that they would have been eligible to vote in. And I think it was a really demeaning and hard way to get into the world of politicking. And so they asked me for some insight because they know that I have a background in politics, lowercase p politics, in that I've worked on a couple of different progressive political campaigns. One of those campaigns was a marriage equality campaign back in 2012, and we worked on a persuasion campaign as part of that work. So what we would do is we would literally call people, go door to door, stand outside, and just have conversations with registered voters about marriage equality. How do you feel about it on a scale of 1 to 5? One being, I would never vote in favor for it. Five being, I'm an ardent supporter. I will always vote yes for it. Believe in marriage equality. Yes, yes, yes. So, with that in mind, I want to introduce you to the concept of the movable middle. So, to do that, I'm going to give you a fun illustration. So this is a bell curve. If you are not familiar with a bell curve, a lot of social science research relies on this. Basically, it's looking at a whole population, getting a sense of who's in that population, what meaning can you make of who they are and who's there. So you have, generally speaking, depending on how the bell curve is split up, you have like 5 to 10% of the population are on one side of a belief, an idea, whatever you're looking at. The other 5 to 10% is on the other side, so the opposite end of that. So in this construction, for example, if we were thinking about a question like marriage equality, do you support it? You have about 5 to 10% who are like, yes, I'm already on your team. I already, donate to the Human Rights Campaign. I already, submitted my ballot, and yes, I said yes. Or you've got down here, absolutely not. I think it's destroying the fabric of America and right, like whatever, whatever argument you can think of against marriage equality. And then you have all these people in the middle who are what we call the movable middle. So I'm not sure. I don't know how to feel about it. When I talked to people, sometimes they would say, I was brought up Catholic. And even though personally I can see the benefits and the virtues of marriage equality, I'm worried. I'm literally worried that if I vote yes for this, I'm going to go to hell. Or I actually once had somebody confide in me over the phone that he was abused by a gay person when he was younger. So he wasn't sure how to feel about gay rights in total, right? People have all kinds of reasons for feeling the way that they do about things. I think one of the real shames of American politics over the last years is that things have gotten extremely flattened, and people don't really live flattened lives. Voters vote for things for all kinds of reasons we would never fathom, things that might seem bizarrely unrelated to whatever the subject at hand is. One of the other mistakes I think we've made is we're spending way too much time in here. So this is the internet echo chamber. This is where many of us have been living since 2016, perhaps, perhaps earlier. But this is where we spend a lot of our time. It's a lot of the like dashboard dog nodding along to the things that we already believe in, the things we already know, or we go picking fights with people in here. I've been guilty of this. I know many of us are guilty of this. We actively look up people that we don't agree with, the people that are so far afield of our viewpoint that we're never going to change their mind, especially not in like the comment section of a social media post, right? Like it's not going to happen. So what we need to be doing is spending so much more of our time in here. And this actually includes a lot more of the population than we even realize. So these are people that are just not sure for whatever reason. And they're the ones who are also willing to engage us in conversation about whatever the subject is. So, what I would encourage you to do is look for those folks and look for ways to be in conversation that will feel non-threatening. And I'm not saying to disavow your own beliefs. I'm not saying to downplay your beliefs. I'm not saying to agree with something that really feels counter to your beliefs, but find places where there's like an inch of common ground to stand on together, even if there's only an inch, and get curious and ask questions. Instead of stating facts, ask questions. Stating facts doesn't really do a whole lot to change people's minds. We all like to think of ourselves as logical people. We all like to think that facts and statistics will sway our ideas and opinions. They kind of don't, honestly. A lot of science research, social science research has gone into this. People are not as swayed by facts as they would like to believe. What really helps is questions, understand people's values. Why do you think that way? What concerns you about this? And that openness, that genuine curiosity to hear the other person out, it does a few things. First of all, it gets someone to start thinking about it for themselves. Maybe they haven't, they've just like, I don't know, I've always voted that way. I have no idea, right? You want to get them thinking about it. Why do you think that? What feels important to you about this? You might want to reflect back, like, I see that one of your values, one of your core values is like being a hard worker. I see one of your core values is expressing empathy and check that. Like, is that true? And so they might say, oh, yeah, my family's generations of hard workers. It's a real value of ours. Or, experiencing and expressing empathy is something that's really changed my worldview. That's a value of mine. So then try to understand how whatever that belief is aligns with that value. The other thing that really helps, personal stories. Personal stories. How does this impact you? How does this impact people around you? One thing that was really successful in the marriage equality campaign, instead of saying things like, well, the Bible doesn't even say, don't do that, right? Or, well, legally speaking, if we're going to give one group of people rights, everybody should deserve rights. It's not effective. It's not effective. What was effective, for example, I had coworkers that shared stories about when they were experiencing a medical crisis where they couldn't make medical decisions for themselves, and their partner, their unmarried partner, because they couldn't get married, was not able to help them make sound medical decisions for themselves. That's a very real experience that somebody that I worked really close with had. And when she shared that experience, that changed people's minds. That really helped to make people understand the context for the day-to-day lived experience. So when I was talking to my class last semester, and I encouraged them to do that, if you really care about reproductive justice, why does this matter to you? What about this affects your day-to-day life or the people that you love and care about? If you really care about voter rights, whatever it is, contextualize it, make it personal and share that personal story. If it's someone close to you, if it's someone in your family, you can, if you trust that person, share with them why what they're thinking and saying hurts your feelings. And this takes a lot of trust and a lot of vulnerability. I do not recommend doing this with people that don't have your best interests in mind. So people who are known to be manipulative, the term gets bandied around a lot, but people who are more on the sociopathic side, that might not be a helpful conversation, and it might in fact be dangerous for you. So somebody who's going to bully you, somebody who's going to belittle you, somebody who has a history of not having your best interest in mind, don't waste your breath on those people because it's just going to be harmful to you. So if you are in a situation to talk to somebody who has your best interest in mind, somebody who cares about you, cares about your relationship, say, this thing that you're saying, this thing that you're doing, here's why it hurts me. And if you can explain that, that goes a long way in being able to, as we like to say in the marriage equality campaign, change hearts and minds.